When we think about the human skeleton, we usually picture a static, rigid frame, maybe something from a science classroom. But today, we're going to look at it in a whole new light. We're going to see it not just as a scaffold, but as an incredible dynamic machine that's built for movement and interaction. So, let's get into it. All right, to kick things off, let's just challenge what we think we know with a quick question. True or false, an adult skull has more bones than a baby's? I mean, the adult skull is bigger, so it's got to have more bones, right? Or is there a twist? And it's false. It's actually the other way around. A baby's skull is made up of more individual bony plates. These plates eventually fuse together as we grow up. This is genius, really. It lets the skull be flexible for birth and gives the brain room to expand. So yeah, we actually start life with more bones than we end up with. Kind of wild. To really get our heads around this amazing machine, here's our game plan. We're going to break this journey down into 5 parts. We'll kick things off at the very core, our body's central pillar. Then we'll check out the tools we use to interact with the world, explore our foundation for movement, learn the language of motion itself, and finally, we'll wrap up with how to keep this whole system running like a well-oiled machine. Okay, let's dive into section 1, your body's central pillar. We're talking about the axial skeleton. This is the skull, the vertebral column, and the thoracic cage. Think of it as the central trunk of your body. It's what holds everything together and, more importantly, protects our most vital organs. Now, a healthy spine has some natural curves, but sometimes these can get a little exaggerated. Let's do a quick-fire round of 3 main types. First up is scoliosis. This is when the spine has an abnormal curve from side to side. Then you've got kyphosis. This is an over-the-top outward curve in the upper spine. You've probably heard it called hunchback. And rounding out the trio, we have lordosis. This one is an excessive inward curve, but in the lower part of the spine, the lumbar region. This is often called swayback. So what's protecting your heart and lungs, your body's most precious cargo? Well, that's the job of the thoracic cage. It's this amazing structure made of your ribs, your sternum, and the part of your spine in your chest. And even the sternum, your breastbone, isn't just one piece. It's actually 3 smaller bones fused together. And get this, not all ribs are created equal. It really all comes down to how they connect to the sternum up front. The first 7 pairs are called true ribs because they have a direct line to the sternum. But ribs 8 through 12, they're false ribs because they don't. And those last 2 pairs are even called floating ribs since they don't connect in the front at all. Okay, moving on to section 2. We've got our central pillar, but how do we actually do stuff in the world? We need tools. So let's talk about our tools for interacting. The upper limbs. These are what we use to touch, to lift, to create, to manipulate our entire world. Our arms hook up to our trunk via the shoulder girdle, which is made of your shoulder blade and your collarbone. And here we see one of the coolest trade-offs in the entire body. The socket where your arm bone sits is super shallow. The best analogy is a golf ball on a tee. This gives us an absolutely massive range of motion, right? But the price we pay is stability, which is exactly why shoulder dislocations are a thing. Moving down the arm from that shoulder joint, you've got the humerus. That's the single bone of your upper arm. It connects down to the 2 bones of your forearm, the radius and the ulna. And you know that pointy part of your elbow? Go ahead, feel it. That's a part of the ulna called the olecranon process. Time for section 3. We're shifting focus from our interactive tools down to the foundation of movement. The pelvis and our legs give us that powerful, stable base we need for, well, everything from just standing still to sprinting across a field. Hey, remember how we said an infant's skull bones fuse together? Well, guess what? This same thing happens with your hip bone. You start with 3 separate bones, the ilium, ischium, and pubis, and they all fuse into one solid structure. And that posterior-inferior part, the ischium, it has these things called the ischial tuberosities. Those are the very bones you're sitting on right now. And what connects to that hip socket? Oh, just the undisputed king of all bones, the femur. It is, without a doubt, the largest and the strongest bone in your entire body. And here's an interesting fact. When you hear about an older person suffering a broken hip, it's usually not the hip bone itself that breaks. It's often the neck of the femur, right where it connects to the pelvis. All right, section 4. We've built the frame, we've got the foundation, but a pile of bones doesn't really do much, does it? So how does it all move? That is where joints come in. This section is all about the language of motion, and joints are basically the grammar that lets our skeletons speak. Now, the vast majority of the joints in our body that allow for movement are called synovial joints. Their big claim to fame is a fluid-filled cavity right between the bones. This fluid lubricates everything and allows for all this incredible free movement. Pretty much every motion we're about to talk about happens at one of these joints. So let's learn some of this language, starting with the most basic movement pairs. First up, flexion and extension. It's super simple. Flexion is just decreasing the angle of a joint, like when you bend your knee. And extension is the opposite. You're increasing the angle, like when you straighten that same knee out. Next, we've got abduction and adduction. Abduction is when you move a limb away from the center line of your body. Think of a UFO abducting someone, taking them away. Adduction is moving that limb back toward the midline. The easy way to remember it is you are adding the limb back to the body. And for our forearms, we've got this awesome rotation. Supination is when you rotate your forearm so your palm faces up. The classic trick to remember this is to think of holding a bowl of soup, supination. Pronation is just the opposite, turning your palm to face down. Okay, let's bring it all home with our final section, keeping your frame healthy. I mean, it's fantastic to understand all this anatomy, but knowing how to actually take care of it, well, that's what really counts, right? Unfortunately, our joints can run into some trouble, and arthritis, which just means joint inflammation, is a big one. But arthritis isn't just one single thing. The most common kind is osteoarthritis, which is basically wear and tear from overuse and age. Then there's gout, which is caused by a painful buildup of crystals. And then there's rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune disease where the body literally attacks its own joints. So how do we protect this incredible system? The key takeaway here is all about balance. We absolutely need regular weight-bearing exercise to keep our bones strong and to fight off age-related bone loss. But just as important, we need to make sure we're using our full range of motion, and this is critical, giving our bodies enough time to recover between workouts. So, from those fusing bones in infancy to the complex dance of synovial joints that lets us move every single day, our skeleton is so much more than just a static frame. It's a living, adapting system that carries us through our entire lives. It all really comes down to this. Your skeleton is your ultimate support system. The only question left is, how are you going to support it?